What's going on, Omnibuddies? Today we are looking at Helen of Wyndhorn. This comes to us from Tom King, Belquist Evely, Matthias Lopez, Clayton Cowles, and published by Dark Horse Comics. What's going on, Omnibuddies? Yes, today we are looking at doing an overview of Helen of Wyndhorn. Yes, this is the hardcover, and yes, as of the making of this video, the slipcase deluxe edition has been solicited, but it is months and months out, so you can either grab this copy pretty cheap or you can wait it out and pre-order if this overview interests you. But yeah, this comes to us from the most excellent Tom King as the writer, and man, does he kill it on this book. And Dark Horse puts out a beautiful little hardcover collection of this, and wow, I didn't know what to expect when I went into this book, and I'm still mulling it over, thinking about what it could, if it has a deeper meaning or if it's just kind of a fun romp, interesting story. But you know what, let's take a quick look at the story, the art, the actual book itself, and any of the extras. All right, so here is the Helen of Wyndhorn deluxe hardcover from Dark Horse Comics. Now this is a Dark Horse deluxe hardcover, so here is, if you are familiar with it, the other deluxe hardcovers from Dark Horse, and it matches up pretty perfectly. So you're not getting an oversized hardcover. When I say deluxe hardcover, this is the deluxe hardcover from the perspective of Dark Horse, which is a little bit smaller in scale, but still great quality. You can see, if you know these books, how thick they are. There you go. Like I said, still great quality, even if it is not an oversized hardcover. You do get nice spot gloss on the back and on the titling and names on the front, and a little bit of spot gloss on the side there. But there it is. And this is not a volume 1. So whether Tom King decides to do more of this story or not, it's all self-contained in this one novel. It does retail for $29.99 USD. Obviously, if you're going through a place like OPB, you can get it for cheaper also. Now let's take a quick look. I am in love with these end sheets, and oh man, they're so nice. I love when people do really nice end sheets on here, and yeah, so all right, let's take a quick look at the book inside, kind of how it folds. There you have the eye hole going on, so it is really nice eye hole. I opened it, relaxed it, took some pictures, I read it, and now I am opening it up for, what is that, a third, fourth time, I guess, after relaxing it. It does lay super flat, flat enough where you can see the stitching in there, but that is totally okay and normal for a book that lays nice and flat like this. Really great quality. There's some more stitching in there. The paper is nice and thick, so let me grab a light here. Paper is nice and thick, so I mean, unless you're shining a light straight through it like this, you're not really, even then it's kind of hard to see through, especially on this camera, but you're not worrying about seeing through in normal, typical, everyday reading conditions. So the paper is nice, good quality, kind of that semi-gloss, good thickness, love it. But yeah, that is pretty much it. We'll get to the extras later on, but that is a quick look at the actual publication of the book itself. All right, so now let's talk story. So Helen of Wyndhorn is totally self-contained in this book. Whether Tom King decides to revisit the story and add more to it, that is possible with how they ended it, but it is not necessary, which is how I like stories to end. Possible, but not necessary to have more to it. But you don't absolutely need it. You don't even necessarily want more, other than you had fun reading it. So, oh, I just gotta say, I just noticed that is her grandpa's face up in the corner. I thought it was just clouds. Wow. Anyways, always finding stuff new. new stuff in here. So let's dive right into it. So this is by Tom King, art by Belquis Evely. Sorry if I'm murdering your name. Colors by Matthias Lopez, and letters by Clayton Cowell. And again, published by Dark Horse Comics. So you get kind of right into it here. What's cool is in the story, it is a lot of different narrations going on, narrators happening in this. You have like these fans of Helen of Wyndhorn who know of her and know of her stories. So you have those fans telling sort of a story. Then you have a the narrator, kind of the nanny, Mary Poppins type nanny, who is there to take care of this troubled child, Helen. And you have her narration through tapes and off tapes and all that. So you have all these different narrators coming on and giving their perspective of Helen, which is super interesting. And like through the use of like, oh, these are the old comics about her life, and like being at like a show, and then like an interviewer who's wondering about Helen, talking just, yeah. So you have this journalist, you have the nanny, you have Helen telling stories. It's all over the place with that. Not confusing, not in a confusing way. I know I'm kind of rambling about it, but it's not confusing in that. So with that said, you are basically tossed right into the world of Helen as she is in the drunk tank, sleeping off the previous night's debauchery, and she is picked up by her pretty straight-laced and pretty strict, at least at the very beginning, nanny, who is there to come collect her because Helen is underage. She's not of age. She's not 18, and she is obviously drinking, smoking, doing all the things. Obviously, it doesn't take place now. I think it takes place early 1900s-ish, somewhere in there. But she comes to collect her because Helen's father has passed away, and she is there, the nanny is there to collect her and bring her home to her grandfather's estate, where she will live at least until she is of age. So as soon as she's picked up or met up with the nanny, we kind of again jump back and forth between a journalist interviewing the nanny and all of that, and telling the story of just trying to get Helen to accompany her to the estate, where she is then introduced to Jonathan, and who's kind of the caretaker of the estate, and a couple of the chefs. And that's about all there is on this giant manor. And pretty quickly, Helen discovers the wine room and again falls back into some deep debauchery and alcoholism. So it does deal heavily with alcoholism and a young woman who is dealing with some trauma, obviously. But there is this warm side to her where, she drinks, disappears all day instead of doing her studies with her nanny, and then in the middle of the night crawls in with her nanny because she needs that kind of comfort. So she's rough, but she's also a delicate young woman. And it's definitely an interesting take on that whole dynamic between that straight-laced nanny, the struggling young woman who is also very smart, but deals with a lot of, it has a lot of issues with smoking and drinking, and can't live without any of these things. And she doesn't want to study because she already knows most of it. And pretty soon something kind of happens on the manor, and there are monsters introduced. And I'm not going to go too much into any of that because this is only the first, I don't know, half an issue maybe, until the first monsters introduced. And what happens then is you're introduced to the grandfather character, who is definitely a BA. And I gotta say, the story is just so interesting, how all the characters play out on their own, but off of each other. The nanny and the caretaker of the estate, the nanny and the grandfather, the caretaker and the grandfather, Helen and her grandfather. Like all of them have this interesting interplay just on their own and in a group setting and dynamic, and then in like one-on-one type situation. So very interesting story where she is then kind of whisked off by her grandfather, and she goes on a life sort of adventure, but dealing with having to come home and dealing with a straight-laced nanny, and then where does she belong, who is she, and trying to find that out. Now, on the surface, I'll mention this probably a few times in this video. On the surface, this seems like a pretty straightforward young woman being trained up to fight monsters in a this mystical, strange world, strange land. But on a deeper level, it does also take on this allegorical view of a young woman dealing with these monsters in her life, of her father passing away and the trauma of that, and living with him and how they lived throughout her upbringing, and what she's dealing with now, those monsters she's dealing with now, and whether her grandfather is seen as, yes, a strong character who teaches her how to deal with these things, and having Jonathan there to teach her how to deal with these things and overcome them and be able to fight them and stand up for herself. Are these, is this an allegory for, getting help with your trauma and overcoming your trauma and your monsters? Or, is it just surface level and she's, this really cool world that she's dealing with and getting to know and, just a BA in. So very cool story. Some interesting twists and turns in it. And I had a lot of fun in it. There's definitely a lot of dialogue in here, so it's not the quickest read ever, but it's no Silver Age book or Bronze Age book where you're spending minutes and minutes on pages at a time. At least I do. So it does scoot by pretty quickly, but it is not like the world's quickest read. It's not like you're reading some manga or something like that. Anyways, that is a quick overview of the story. Hopefully I didn't give too much away. Let's get into the art. All right, so now let's talk about the art. I've mentioned some of the art before, like these end sheets. I love the art in this book, so gorgeous. Belquis Evely did an amazing job on this art here, and Matthias Lopez on colors, absolutely perfect complement to the line art and all of that. Adds so much depth to these characters. I mean, just look at these characters, and I love that there's details behind them in the frame. Not a lot of books do that. A lot of them just leave it empty. Like you can see there, instead of just an empty sky, there's actual like clouds and motion and action going on in these things when it's necessary, like in a prison. There's silhouetted characters, but there's still a lot of detail going on in all of that. So super cool. Man, the emotion and the facial expressions. I mean, you can tell she is just waking up and hung over and not feeling great, but then you can tell she is feeling great and in her element here, and you can tell the nanny is not pleased and not impressed, but kind of intrigued. So there's a lot of great art and subtlety in this. I don't know if, after you get through a whole book, you just completely regret giving characters curly hair and those types of features. But Evely does carry on those curls throughout the entire book, and there's a lot of wispy lines and interesting detail work in the what the characters are wearing. Really great stuff all throughout. The monster designs and the world designs, all of it are just fantastic. I was never lost in the frame or anything like that. Speaking of the frames, there's definitely some interesting play with framing in here, you know, where you have someone like the grandfather in a frame, but it's framed by this nice detail work, and he kind of comes out of it. And then you have no frame on that, which is, you know, the whole background of the page. And then you go back to more paneling in there. So the panel structure and layout of the pages aren't anything crazy or interesting, like in that it's like doing all these crazy twists or anything, but it does do the normal kind of flow of things, but adds an interesting twist and a nice aesthetics. There's just a beautiful, nice aesthetic style to these panels and the structure of the book and the pages themselves. I'm trying to see, you know, like these full pages are just great. So well, the dynamic lines of all the swords and the pikes coming in, pointing right at her. Really great stuff. You know, just, oh man, just such good framing in all of this. Just kind of was it the golden ratio where it kind of comes in, and oh man, so nice. And using the tree here to frame and bring your eye to the character there. And oh yeah, just so well done. The more I look at this book and the pages and the detail and the color, oh my gosh. Okay, well now I'm just kind of babbling and gushing about this book, but it rightfully deserves it because it is some of the best art I've seen in a while, and some of the most complimentary coloring I've seen in a while. So good. I'm excited, very excited for this to come out in a slipcase edition. Definitely got to pick it up to see this art in a bigger format. I really wish that they would do an absolute of this. We can only hope and dream that they do this in a bigger format, but there you go. All right, last things last, let's talk about extras on this book. So, you know, you got some nice end page art in here. I consider that an extra. There are not a huge amount of extras, but there are a little bit. I'm gonna put my hand over that page so you can't see the end of it. So you got some nice, oh man, nice watercolor by Tula Lotte of Helen there. So you got all these great cover art pieces from the book when it was coming out. Love that. Nice little gallery of all the cover art in here. And then let's see, let's get into it. Then we got the sketchbook and notes by Everly. So you got some notes down here as you go through the sketchbook and figuring out the characters and all that. Some of that, if you want to pause and read that, sure, great. But there you go. And then we can scooch through a little bit more. We got some more character studies and sketches, some more sketch notes. So you got about 3 pages, wait, 3? No, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages of sketches and sketch notes. We got some of the, you know, the inspiration behind it for those fantasy romance and gothic romances and all that. So really nice, well done. And that is it for the extras in here. All right, so that was the overview of Helen of Wyndhorn. Hopefully that didn't give much away, but yes, I'm still unsure. I mean, people might call me stupid or reading too much into it, or, you know, maybe I completely missed the point. One, I had a ton of fun reading it, and I think that's the main point. But I think there's always deeper meanings behind stories. And I think it's interesting looking at a book like this where a girl is in her day-to-day life fighting some demons, fighting some monsters, but then gets to escape with a wiser person who's older or, you know, more experienced, who helps them fight some demons. And you know what, I don't know if this is, you know, an allegory for, you know, fighting our own demons and getting help from you know, people who've been through it and know their way around this world, or if it's just a fun romp. Either way you could take it. In fact, I just started thinking about it in the allegory of, you know, like dealing with your own personal demons. the more I think about it, because this book has stuck with me. So definitely check it out. Highly recommend. On face value, it's a ton of fun. On a deeper look, it's even more fun. The art is outstanding. The colors are great. The story, like I said, is amazing. The publication itself from Dark Horse is awesome as usual. And you know what? You should definitely check it out, whether you're going to pre-order the slipcase, or if you're watching this later, pick up the slipcase, or just grab this hardcover because you don't want to invest that much into it. Either way you go is definite must. But yeah, check it out. You can use my code Omnibuddy for $2 off every order, or if you're ordering 4 or more books from OPB, you can use Omnibuddy, ship it together, and get 5% off your entire order of books. Careful if you're pre-ordering, because all the books will wait until that pre-order hits the shelves, and they can send them to you all at once. Ship it together. Anyways, that's it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification, do all those things, but let me know in the comments what your favorite monster fighting book is. Is it a book like Helen of Wyndhorn? Is it a book like I Kill Giants? That's very much an allegory, kind of like I was mentioning this could be. Is it, you know, like something is killing the children? Let me know in the comments. Definitely interested in more people fighting monsters books that are out there. All right, that's it. Take care. Stay cool.